7 feet of pure rage stormed through a mountain of a man with wild eyes and fists like sledgehammers. Glass shattered. A stretcher flew across the room. Security guards bounced off him like children. "Get back," someone screamed. Veteran nurses scattered. Doctors froze. This wasn't their first violent patient, but this was different. The giant's roar shook the fluorescent lights. Blood dripped from his knuckles. He was hunting for something or someone. Then she stepped forward. Riley Chen, 5'3", 23 years old. 3 months out of nursing school, her hands weren't even shaking. "Sir," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade, "I need you to listen to me." What happened next would be talked about in that hospital for years, because Riley wasn't just a nurse. Before the scrubs and the stethoscope, she'd been someone else entirely. And in that moment, facing down a giant that 6 grown men couldn't stop, she remembered exactly who she was. The technique took 4 seconds. The giant hit the floor, and Riley Chen's legend was born. Riley Chen's shift had started like any other Thursday night at Sacred Heart Memorial Hospital. The kind of quiet that veteran nurses knew better than to trust that eerie, suffocating calm that always preceded the storm. "Drink your coffee now," her supervisor, Margaret, had warned at 10 p.m. Margaret was 58, built like a linebacker, and had seen everything twice. Full moon tonight. "Ours gonna light up like the 4th of July. Riley had smiled politely, the way rookies do when veterans share their superstitions. She was still new enough to believe in logic, in evidence-based medicine. In the rational world, her textbooks had promised her 3 months on the job, 97 shifts. She'd handled overdoses, heart attacks, a man with a garden gnome lodged somewhere unfortunate, and a woman who'd tried to baptize her cat in boiling water. She thought she'd seen it all. She had no idea the ER was a cathedral of suffering, all harsh lights and antiseptic smell. Curtained bays lined the walls like confessionals. The waiting room hummed with Miseria kid with a broken arm, an elderly woman clutching her chest, a teenager who'd been vomiting for 6 hours. Normal Thursday night problems. Riley moved through it with the efficiency they'd drilled into her at nursing school. Check vitals, update charts, administer medications, comfort the frightened. Every patient a puzzle to solve, every shift a test. She was determined to pass with honors. Chen. Dr. Patel called from Bay 7, "Need you for a catheter insertion." On it, she was good at her job. Better than good, actually. Her hands never fumbled with IVs. Her assessments were thorough. She remembered every patient's name, every allergy, every fear whispered in the dark. The other nurses had stopped calling her the rookie after the first month, but they didn't know. None of them knew. At 11:30 p.m., the first ambulance arrived. Gunshot wound, gang-related, bleeding out fast. Riley assisted as Dr. Patel worked, her hands steady as she passed instruments, applied pressure, maintained the airway. The boy he couldn't have been more than 17 died at 11:47 p.m. She took her 30-second moment of silence in the supply closet, like she always did, a breath for the dead. Then back to work. At 12:15 a.m., a drunk driver came in, belligerent and screaming. Security handled him. Riley stitched up his passenger, a woman who kept apologizing through her tears. Apologizing for being alive when her best friend wasn't. At 1:30 a.m., a code blew in the cardiac unit. All hands on deck. 40 minutes of chest compressions before they got him back. At 2 a.m., Margaret appeared with 2 coffees. "Told you," she said, handing one to Riley. Full moon, Riley took the coffee gratefully. Her feet ached, her back screamed. But this was the job. This was what she'd signed up for. "You holding up okay?" Margaret asked, studying her with those sharp nurse eyes that missed nothing. I'm fine. You always say that. Because it's always true. Margaret sipped her coffee, unconvinced. You know, when I was your age, I had a breakdown after a shift like this, cried in my car for an hour. My training officer found me, told me it was okay to not be okay. I appreciate the concern, but I'm good. Really? What Riley didn't say, she'd been trained for worse than this. Much worse. In a life that felt like it belonged to someone else now. She'd been trained to function through pain, through fear, through things that would break most people. But that was a different Riley, in a different world. She'd left that world behind, buried it deep, traded combat boots for nursing clogs and a rifle for a stethoscope. Sometimes, though, late at night, when the ER was quiet, she could feel it lurking beneath her skin, that other life waiting. At 2:45 a.m., the radio crackled. Sacred Heart, this is Unit 7. We're 3 minutes out with a situation. Male, approximately 7 feet tall, approximately 300 pounds. Extremely agitated. PCP suspected. Broke free from restraints in the ambulance. We need security standing by. Margaret's face went pale. Jesus Christ. Dr. Patel appeared, already moving. Clear Bay 1. Get security here now. Chemical restraints ready. Chen, I'll get the sedatives, Riley said, already moving. But even as she pulled the vials from the locked cabinet, even as she drew up the medications with practiced efficiency, something stirred in the back of her mind. A whisper from that other life, you're going to need more than drugs. She shook it off. This was a hospital. They had protocols. Security for trained guards who dealt with violent patients every week. They'd handle it. The ambulance arrived at 2:47 a.m. The giant came through the doors like a natural disaster. The first thing Riley noticed was the silence. Not actual silence. Man was roaring, the kind of primal sound that bypassed the brain and went straight to the hindbrain, triggering every fight-or-flight instinct humans had spent millennia developing. But there was a moment, a single breath, when everyone in the ER stopped. Nurses mid-sentence, doctors mid-step, patients mid-complaint. Everyone stopped and stared at the impossibility storming through the automatic doors. He was massive. Not just tall, massive. 7 feet of muscle and fury, with shoulders that barely fit through the doorway. His hospital gown hung in tatters. Blood covered his hands. His chest dripped from a gash on his forehead that should have felled a normal man. His eyes were wild, pupils blown so wide there was almost no color left, just black pits of chemical rage. PCP, Riley's brain supplied automatically. Phencyclidine, angel dust. Superhuman strength, imperviousness to pain, unpredictable violence. The 2 paramedics stumbled in after him, looking shell-shocked. The younger one had a split lip. The older one was limping. We lost him, the older paramedic gasped, snapped the restraints like the giant spun faster than something that size should move, and his fist caught the stretcher. Metal shrieked, the stretcher flew across the room and crashed into the vending machine. Glass exploded. Candy bars and chips scattered across the floor like debris from a bomb blast. Then the screaming started. Everybody out. Security Chief Morrison bellowed, reaching for his taser. Now, but the giant was already moving. He grabbed a Dr. Young resident, couldn't have been more than 28 and lifted him off the ground with one hand. Where is she? The giant roared into the doctor's terrified face. Where is my daughter? Morrison's taser hit the giant in the chest. It did exactly nothing. The giant didn't even flinch. He threw the doctor aside like a rag doll. The resident hit the wall and crumpled. Morrison and his 3 guards moved in, trying to surround the giant, trying to use their numbers. They'd done this before: violent patients, drunk patients, patients in psychotic breaks. This was supposed to be routine. The giant caught Morrison's 2nd guard, a former college football player named Davis, with a backhand that sent him spinning into a medication cart. Pills and syringes scattered. Davis didn't get up. "Oh God," Margaret whispered beside Riley. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." The other nurses were backing away. Patients were screaming. Someone had pulled the fire alarm, and now that shrill mechanical wail added to the chaos. The giant was hunting, moving through the ER with terrible purpose. He flipped a hospital bed on its side, tore a privacy curtain from its rails. His roar echoed off the walls. "Where is she? Lily, Lily." Morrison tried to tackle him from behind. The giant shrugged him off like a coat. Morrison hit the floor hard. Another guard tried to grab his arms. The giant broke free, and his elbow accidentally or intentionally, impossible to tell, caught the guard in the face. Blood sprayed, 3 security guards down, one still trying, but clearly terrified, staying just out of reach. Dr. Patel had pulled out his phone, dialing 911, calling for police backup, but the police were minutes away. The giant was here now, and he was heading for the pediatric bay, where a 6-year-old girl was recovering from an appendectomy, where a teenage boy was sleeping off a concussion, where 3 other children lay vulnerable and terrified. "Someone stop him." A nurse screamed. "Bahoo." Morrison was down, gasping for breath, maybe a broken rib. His guards were scattered, bleeding, incapacitated. The doctors were brilliant minds in fragile bodies. The nurses were exhausted at the end of a double shift. The giant reached the pediatric bay curtain, and Riley Chen stepped in front of him. She didn't remember deciding to move. One moment she was standing by the nurse's station, watching the chaos unfold with the same detached horror as everyone else. The next moment her feet were carrying her forward, and that other person, that other Riley, the one she'd buried 3 years ago, was surfacing. "Sir," she said. Her voice was different, flat, authoritative. The voice of someone who'd given orders in life or death situations. The giant froze. His hand was on the curtain, inches from pulling it aside, inches from reaching those children. But something in Riley's voice made him stop. He turned to look at her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Blood and sweat made rivers down his face. His breathing was ragged, animalistic. The PCP had turned him into something not quite human, any moral instinct and chemical fury, but his eyes, just for a moment, focused on her. Sir Riley said again, taking one careful step forward. "My name is Riley. I'm a nurse. I'm here to help you find Lily." "Lily," the giant repeated. His voice cracked. Beneath the rage, Riley heard something else. Grief. Desperation. Terror. "Where's my daughter? I'm going to help you find her," Riley said, taking another step. Her hands were visible, open, not threatening. "But I need you to step away from that curtain. There are sick children behind there, and you don't want to scare them. You don't want to hurt them. I know you don't." Around them, the ER had gone silent. Everyone was watching. Some were filming on their phones. Margaret had her hand over her mouth. The giant swayed, confused. The drugs in his system were fighting against his consciousness, against his humanity. She's here. They said she's here. My little girl. When did you last see Lily? Riley asked, taking another step. She was close now, too close. If he swung at her, she'd have maybe half a second to react. Today, this morning, she was, his massive hands came up to his head. I can't remember. They gave me something. The cops, they gave me something and now I can't. PCP mixed with something else. Antipsychotics, maybe. Or sedatives. A cocktail that had turned his brain into a war zone. It's okay, Riley said softly. The drugs are confusing you. But I promise you, we're going to figure this out together. First, I need you to take 3 steps back from that curtain. Can you do that for me? The giant looked at the curtain, then back at Riley. Something in his face shifted. Recognition, maybe, or just exhaustion. He took 1 step back. Good, Riley said. That's really good. 2 more steps. He took another step. Behind Riley, she could hear Dr. Patel's harsh whisper. Chen, what the hell are you doing? She ignored him. Her entire focus was on the giant, on reading his body language, his micro-expressions, the subtle shifts that told her whether he was about to cooperate or explode. This was the skill they'd taught her in that other life, not in nursing school, not in any civilian training. This was something else, something they drilled into her in that compound in North Carolina, where they'd taken broken soldiers and taught them to become something more, or something less, depending on how you looked at it. 1 more step, Riley said. The giant took it. Perfect. Now, I need you to sit down on the floor for me. Nice and slow. Can you do that? But Lily, we're going to find Lily. I promise you. But first, you need to sit down so I can check your injuries. You're hurt, and you don't even realize it. That cut on your head needs stitches. Your knuckles are bleeding. Let me help you. The giant looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Blood dripped from his knuckles onto the linoleum. Sit down, Riley repeated, her voice gentle but firm. Right here, right now. For a moment, it could have gone either way. The giant teetered on the edge between compliance and chaos. Then his legs buckled, and he sat. The collective exhale in the ER was audible. Riley immediately knelt beside him, her hands moving to assess his injuries even as her mind catalogued escape routes, weapons, angles of attack if this went sideways. What's your name? She asked. Marcus. Marcus Washington. Marcus, I'm going to check your pupils. Look at me. She pulled out her penlight and shined it in his eyes. Blown pupils, but reactive. That was good. She checked his pulse racing, but strong. His breathing was labored, but regular. Marcus, do you remember where you were before the ambulance? Home. My apartment. Something happened. Something bad. I called 911. There was blood. Riley's training kicked in. Patient presenting with altered mental status, possible head injury, definite drug intoxication. History unclear. Potential for sudden violent re-escalation. It's okay. We're going to figure it out. But I need you to stay calm for me. Can you do that? Marcus nodded, but his eyes were filling with tears. Where's Lily, please? She's only 8 years old. I need to know she's okay. Behind Riley, Dr. Patel was frantically typing on a computer. Then his voice, quiet but urgent. Chen, there's no Lily Washington in the system. No pediatric admissions under that name tonight. Riley's blood ran cold. She looked at Marcus, at his genuine distress, at the confusion in his drugged eyes, at the blood on his hands that might not be his own. "Marcus," she said carefully, "where is Lily now?" "Here, they said she was here." The voices said, "No, wait, the cops. The cops told me." "Or did I?" His hands went to his head again. "I can't think. Everything's confused. Make it stop. Please, make it stop." Riley made a decision. She stood up slowly, placing herself between Marcus and the rest of the emergency room. Her body became a barrier without looking like one. Then she turned her head slightly toward Dr. Patel and spoke in a low voice meant only for him. She told him to call the police and request a welfare check at Marcus's address immediately. Dr. Patel's face drained of color as the implications hit him all at once. If Lily wasn't here, if Marcus couldn't remember where she was, and if he was covered in blood, then something far worse than an ER outburst had already happened. Riley then called out to Morrison, the security chief who was struggling to get back on his feet. She told him to clear the area, to move everyone out of the bay, to leave only her and Marcus in the open space. Morrison started to protest, but something in her voice stopped him. It wasn't loud. It wasn't emotional. It carried the unmistakable weight of authority. The look in her eyes told him she had done this before, that she knew exactly what she was doing. He didn't argue, he moved. The ER emptied quickly. Nurses, doctors, patients all retreated to the far end of the room behind the safety of the station. In moments, the chaos fell away, leaving only Riley and Marcus standing amid the wreckage of overturned beds, shattered glass, and scattered medical supplies. Marcus began to cry, not quietly, but in deep, shaking sobs that rolled through his massive frame. He kept repeating the same words over and over, insisting that he was a good father, that he would never hurt his daughter, that he couldn't understand why he couldn't remember. His confusion frightened him more than anything else. Riley knelt beside him again, but this time her presence changed. She wasn't the soldier. She wasn't even the nurse. She was just a human being speaking to another human at the worst moment of his life. She told him calmly that the drugs in his system were making it hard to think, but that they were going to get through it together. She asked him to go back to the last moment everything made sense and tell her where Lily was. Marcus squeezed his eyes shut and forced himself to remember it. He talked about picking Lily up from school, taking her to the park, watching her laugh on the swings. He remembered going home, helping her with homework, making her favorite dinner mac and cheese, and how she always said it was the best in the world. His voice cracked as he spoke, the memories slipping through his fingers like water. Then his expression changed. His eyes went distant. He remembered a man at the door, someone claiming to be from the school. Lily hadn't recognized him and had run to her room. Marcus had told the man to leave, but he refused. Then something had been sprayed into Marcus's face. After that, everything became distorted. Sounds were too loud. Colors were too bright. He could hear Lily screaming, but couldn't reach her. There were more men. They were taking her, and he couldn't stop them. Riley understood immediately. This wasn't a psychotic break. This was a home invasion, a drugged father, a missing child. She asked for his address. Marcus told her it was Cedar Grove, Building 4, Apartment 3B. Riley turned to Dr. Patel and made sure he had heard it. He already had his phone to his ear, relaying the information to the police. Marcus grabbed Riley's arm, his strength still frightening despite his fear. His eyes begged her. He told her Lily was all he had. Her mother had died when Lily was 3. It had always been just the two of them. He begged her to find his daughter and bring her back. Riley promised him she would, and she meant it. Then she told him she needed him to lie down on the floor, face down, with his hands behind his back. She explained calmly that the police were about to arrive and that they needed to see him as compliant, not as a threat. She needed him safe. He understood and lowered himself to the floor with slow, deliberate movements, fighting through the haze in his mind. She thanked him and told him he was doing great, that she would stay right there with him. She asked Morrison to bring a blanket and some water. When they arrived, she covered Marcus and placed the bottle where he could see it, telling him it would be there when he was ready. 3 minutes later, the police arrived. 6 officers entered with weapons drawn, shouting commands. What they saw stopped them short. A massive man lay face down on the floor, covered with a blanket, completely compliant. Beside him stood a small nurse, calm and unmoving. Riley explained quickly that Marcus had been drugged with PCP against his will, that his daughter had been kidnapped from their home, and that units needed to be dispatched immediately to the address she provided. The lead officer, a female sergeant, lowered her weapon slightly and asked Riley who she was. Riley told her she was Marcus's nurse and that he was a patient, not a criminal. She explained that he needed detox and medical care, not violence. The sergeant studied her face for a long moment before nodding and taking control of the situation. As the officers secured Marcus with handcuffs, he didn't resist. He just cried and whispered his daughter's name. Before they led him away, he looked back at Riley and asked her to tell him when they found Lily, to tell him she was okay. Riley promised she would. Then he was gone. Via fell silent. Riley stood alone in the middle of the destruction and felt that other version of herself retreat beneath the surface. Her hands were steady, her breathing was normal. She had just negotiated a crisis, restrained a drugged giant, and possibly saved multiple lives, and she felt nothing at all. That frightened her more than anything else. Margaret approached her carefully and asked if she was okay. Riley said she was fine automatically. Margaret didn't believe her. She asked where Riley had learned to do something like that. Riley hesitated, then lied. She said it was instinct. But it wasn't. It was training precise, deliberate training in de-escalation, close quarters control, and psychological assessment. The kind of training that didn't come from nursing school, the kind that came from a very different life. The rest of the shift was a blur. The police came and went, taking statements. Morrison and his guards were treated for their injuries: bruised ribs, split lip, possible concussion, nothing life-threatening. The ER was cleaned up. the patients were redistributed, and somehow, impossibly, they finished the shift. At 7 a.m., when Riley's replacement arrived, Margaret pulled her aside. "My office. Now, Riley followed, her stomach sinking. This was it. The questions she couldn't answer. The past she couldn't explain. Margaret closed the door and gestured to a chair. Riley sat. For a long moment, Margaret just studied her. "Then, I've been a nurse for 36 years. I've worked in trauma units, psychiatric facilities. I've seen everything. And I have never, in my entire career, seen anyone do what you did tonight." Riley said nothing. "So I'm going to ask you once, and I want an honest answer. Where did you learn that?" Riley looked at her hands. These hands that drew blood and administered medications and comforted the dying. These hands that had once held a different kind of instrument entirely. "Before nursing school," she said slowly, "I was in the military." "What branch?" "Army." "What was your MOS?" "Military Occupational Specialty." The question every veteran knew. Riley hesitated. "Then 6-8W combat medic." It wasn't a lie. She had been a combat medic for 6 months in her first year of service. Before they'd noticed her test scores, before they'd pulled her aside and asked if she wanted to do something more, something special, they'd said, something important. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Combat medics don't get hand-to-hand combat training like that, and they definitely don't get hostage negotiation training. "I had additional training." "What kind of additional training?" Riley met her eyes. "The kind I signed papers saying I would never talk about." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, Margaret sighed. "Are you a danger to my staff or my patients?" "No." "Are you running from something?" "Not anymore." "Are you going to explain any of this to me?" "I can't." Margaret drummed her fingers on her desk. "You know, I could fire you. What you did tonight was completely against protocol. You put yourself in danger. You made tactical decisions that should have been made by security or police. I know, but you also saved lives tonight. Marcus Washington could have hurt those children. He could have hurt a dozen people. And you stopped him with nothing but words." Margaret shook her head. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take the next 2 days off, paid. You're going to process what happened tonight. And if you decide you want to keep working here, you're going to show up for your next scheduled shift, and we're never going to talk about this again." Riley felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Because if you do come back, you're going to train every nurse in this on de-escalation techniques. But whatever they taught you, wherever they taught you, you're going to share it." "Deal, deal." Riley stood to leave, but Margaret's voice stopped her at the door. "Riley, I don't know what you did before you came here, and I don't need to know, but I'm glad you're here now. Whatever you were, whatever you did, you're using it to help people. That matters." Riley nodded, not trusting her voice, and left. She drove home in the early morning light, her mind replaying the night over and over. Marcus Washington's face, his tears, his desperate need to find his daughter. Her phone rang at 9 a.m. just as she was climbing into bed. Unknown number. She answered, "Hello, is this Riley Chen?" "Yes." "This is Sergeant Valdez, MPD. I was at the hospital last night. I wanted you to know we found her." Riley's heart stopped. Lily, alive and unharmed. She was being held in a warehouse downtown. Looks like it was an abduction attempt, probably for ransom. The father has a high-paying tech job, made him a target. They drugged him with PCP to incapacitate him and make him look like the aggressor. It would have worked, too, if you hadn't figured it out. Riley closed her eyes. Is she with him now? Not yet. He's still in detox, but she will be soon. She's asking for him. "Thank you," Riley whispered. "Thank you for telling me." "No," Sergeant Valdez said. "Thank you. What you did last night. That was something else. We've got it on the hospital cameras. I've never seen anything like it." After she hung up, Riley sat on her bed and cried. Not from fear or stress or exhaustion, but from relief. From gratitude, from the overwhelming feeling that maybe, just maybe, all the things she'd done in that other life, all the training, all the missions, all the darkness, maybe it had been worth it for moments like this. She'd been a soldier once, a special operator, the kind they didn't talk about, the kind who did the jobs no one else could do. She'd seen things and done things that still haunted her dreams. She'd left that life because she couldn't bear it anymore, because she'd wanted to save lives instead of taking them, because she'd needed to prove to herself that her hands could heal as well as hurt. Tonight, in the chaos of a broken facing down a 7-foot giant, she'd found a way to be both the soldier and the nurse, the warrior and the healer. She thought about Marcus and Lily, about their reunion, about a father and daughter who would get a second chance because she'd been there, because she'd had the training and the courage to step forward when no one else could. Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. "You did good tonight, kid. Get some rest." Riley smiled and fell asleep. 3 weeks later, Riley was finishing a relatively quiet shift when a man appeared at the nurse's station. He was tall, very tall, but no longer terrifying. Marcus Washington was clean-shaven, clear-eyed, and holding the hand of a small girl with pigtails and a backpack decorated with unicorns. "Nurse Riley," he said quietly. Riley looked up and felt her heart swell. "Marcus, Lily, we wanted to come say thank you," Marcus said. His voice was completely different from that night, soft, educated, gentle. "I don't remember much from that night, but the police told me what you did, how you talked me down, how you figured out what happened. You saved my daughter's life. You saved my life." Lily stepped forward shyly. "Daddy says you're a hero." Riley knelt down to the girl's level. "Your daddy's the hero, sweetie. He fought through the drugs to try to find you. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen. Are you really a soldier?" Lily asked. Riley glanced at Marcus, who looked apologetic. The news coverage mentioned you had military training. I was, Riley told Lily honestly, but now I'm a nurse. Because helping people is the best job in the world. Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a drawing. It showed two stick figures, one very tall, one very small, holding hands. Above them, in crayon letters, "Thank you, Nurse Riley. I made this for you," Lily said. Riley took the drawing, and this time she didn't try to hide the tears. "It's perfect. I'm going to hang it in my locker." Marcus placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. "We won't keep you. I know you're working. But I wanted you to see that she's okay, that we're okay, because of you." "I'm so glad," Riley said. So glad. They left, father and daughter, walking out into the afternoon sunlight. Riley watched them go, feeling something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Margaret appeared beside her. "That was them, huh?" "Yeah, you're already a legend in this hospital. The rookie who took down the giant. They're calling you the ER Whisperer now." Riley laughed. "That's terrible. Own it." Margaret handed her a coffee. "You've got 3 new nurses starting next week. I told them you'd be running de-escalation training. I will. And Riley, I know you think your past is something you need to hide, but maybe it's something you need to integrate. You're not just a nurse, you're not just a soldier, you're both, and that makes you remarkable." Riley sipped her coffee. Considering this, for 3 years, she'd been trying to bury her past, to become someone new. But maybe Margaret was right. Maybe the answer wasn't to choose between the soldier and the nurse. Maybe it was to be both. "Hey," Margaret said, nudging her. "You know what today is? Thursday, your 6-month anniversary with us." 6 months. It felt like yesterday and like a lifetime ago. "How do you feel?" Margaret asked. Riley looked around the AOT, the nurses moving between patients, at the doctors conferring over charts, at the steady rhythm of healing happening all around her. She thought about Marcus and Lily, about the lives she'd saved and the lives still to save. "I feel," Riley said slowly, "like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." And for the first time in years, she meant it.